Okay, so today we're going to do a no-knead bread. I wrote the recipe down. I know it's not very clear. I will put the website down in the comment section. This is actually a really easy bread. It takes about 30 minutes, and I can't seem to rearrange things and get them to where it makes me happy. Okay, so in there so far is the sugar, the yeast, the oil, and then I take the water and kind of splash that because it tends to make a mess, and I always do. You could just pour it straight in there, and you'd have to kind of take it and put a spoon or something in there and mix it around. Hard to do with the camera. I try to use the water to kind of splash it around, let it get all bubbly. We're going to let this sit. It takes about 5 minutes. We're going to look at the other ingredients while this is going, and then I will prep the pan for it, and then we'll see where it stands. We're going to be using a dough hook. Yes, it does call for salt in the recipe. It calls for 2 teaspoons. I'm not a salt fan. I typically don't add it to anything, and I have left it out of this, and it's been just fine. So that's something, if you want to add it, you can add it. I don't. Personal preference, all up to you. You would add it at the same step when you add in the baking powder and the flour, which is, I don't know if you can see it back there. That big container right here next to the mixer is my all-purpose flour. Okay, so this recipe, from what I was reading online, you actually would typically mix it in a bowl and do it all by hand. I prefer my KitchenAid mixer. Let's just turn this piece. And the dough hook, it does all the mixing, it does all the kneading, and then that way the only thing I have to do is at the very end as I separate it and form what I need to make. Now, not only is this a no-knead dough, it takes about 30 minutes total, about 15 to get everything made here, and then 15 to 20 in the oven, depending on how your oven cooks. I've already got the oven preheating to 425. You can make pizza dough, you can make buns, you can make bread. So far it's worked pretty well with everything. On the bread, you have to be careful how you fold it and roll it because it can put air pockets through it. Learned the hard way. But it makes awesome, awesome pizza crust. So, this is the one glass. Let me stand behind it so you can kind of see it. Bread pan that I'm going to be using. I'm going to go ahead and spray it with vegetable oil. And then I will take and make some rolls with the other half and put it on here. This recipe, the way it is, makes 2 loaves of bread. You can get 2 pizzas out of it. Buns or rolls, I'm not sure how many you really get because I never really counted. I've only used it for buns once and rolls once. So, I've used it for pizza quite a few times, and I've used it for bread. Sometimes the bread comes out awesome, and sometimes it comes out a little holy, and we joke that it's our holy bread. Because it comes out with, it looks great on the outside, it'll have a hole space throughout the entire inside. But that's when you keep it. You can turn that into croutons if it does that. You can turn it into breadcrumbs. There are so many things for it. If you do make breadcrumbs out of it, I would recommend putting it in the freezer to keep them after you make them into breadcrumbs, because if not, it can still go stale and mold sitting on your shelf the way it would if it was sitting as a loaf of bread. You don't want that to happen. So, we're getting there. It's getting frothy. It's starting to smell good. Okay, I'm going to show you the beginning stages of the frothiness is, if I can't see. Got to figure out this thing. See, it's beginning to get frothy, and it's not quite where I want it yet. Now, this is one of those things, most people, would worry that as it's getting frothy, if you walk away and leave it, that it's going to damage it. Personally, I wouldn't worry with it. I have actually left that sitting in that bowl like that, getting frothy for, I would say, a good 15 minutes before, and actually had the froth up to here. So it's not really hurtful. And the bread came out just fine, tasted just fine. We were good to go. On this dough, after you get it in the pan, it does say that you can put milk on the top, or like an egg wash or something like that if you want. I tend to just not worry with it. I have a habit of when it comes out, I take actual butter out of the fridge and cover it with butter that way, and give it a little extra flavor. The frothiness before we move on. I know you can see it. So that's the froth. I'm going to try to be adding the flour and everything so you can see how it looks as it goes. I can't get my... So, now that we're at this point, the recipe itself calls for 6 cups of flour. Some people would level off the flour and do it slowly as you go. I'm not one of those people. Never have been. So we're going to get our 1 teaspoon of the baking powder. And I just kind of sprinkle that on here. It's going to be loud for a second. Sorry, I like to chunk things to the sink. So, that. Then I just take the flour. Oh, and this one, I didn't think about it. You can also use, if you don't want to use all-purpose, I want to go a little bit healthier. Let's see if I can get the camera on it. I have all-purpose here. There is bread flour, but you can also take and use the wheat, or you can split wheat and all-purpose. Which actually doesn't sound bad, but I think today we're just going to go all-purpose because it's really easy. And more people have all-purpose than not. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So there's the 6 cups it called for. Now I will tell you, normally on this one, I end up adding an extra cup of flour later on as it gets towards the end of the mixing, mainly because it seems like it wants to be really sticky. And I probably will again today, just because of the fact that it is pretty humid. We have had rain nonstop since Sunday. And it's supposed to rain through the entire weekend this weekend. So, and it's going to be a little bit noisy. It doesn't take long. I always start mine off on the very first setting, so I don't have the big plume of flour come up. Mainly because I don't want to wear it. Like I said, this recipe, you don't have to have the mixer. It can be done by hand. But I have a KitchenAid and it works, and it's a lot faster than if I did it by hand. So it would take a lot longer if I had to do it by hand. You lock that in place so it doesn't start flumping and bumping around on us. Now, when it gets to about this point where I'm not going to have the big plumes coming up, I tend to speed it up by 1. Kind of turn so you can get a good view of it without having a bunch of shadows. See, as you can kind of see, it's still kind of sticky looking and wet looking. I don't know if you can see it in there really well or not. See how it's kind of wet looking right there? That's not really what we want. So, it's all mixed. You can tell by the way it's spinning around. And to unlock it, I'm going to turn this off. This is about the point on this one that I take my finger, if I can. There we go. I take my finger and I just kind of see how sticky that is. I don't like that because that means when I knead this on the counter, I'm going to have to try to knead in a lot of flour to try to get this to not be sticky. So I'm going to add an extra cup as I dump it on the counter. I'm going to close it down, start it back on low, and lock, and it still shoots it out. As we can see, hence the nice mess going everywhere. Just let it sit and knead. Like I said, by doing it this way, for me, it cuts down some of the steps. I have a 3-year-old who loves to try to come in and help make this bread and knead it because he likes to play in the flour. So letting the machine, let's turn it up a little bit. So letting the machine do as much of it as I can is a very big help. As you can see how it's pulling away from the bottom? I can see it. See how that's pulling away down there? Okay. See that clean bowl down there? How it's totally pulled away? That's what we want. Just gotta be careful because it will get stuck on the dough hook and it will cause the dough hook, if you're not careful, to slam back down. Okay, let's see, we're at that point. This is where I take my pink spatula, and since it's clean, I just stick it in the flour bowl because it's clean. It hasn't been on anything yet, and then I use it to scrape. Sorry, I thought I heard. I'll have to go check that in a minute. Take and scrape as much of this off as you can. And it looks kind of gross coming off of there. But this is one of those doughs. I don't think you really can mess it up very much. Okay. So, I tend to take this off. Don't call it more if I need to. So, anyway, we are back. All I did was move the camera over, so you're a little bit at a different spot. So I had the dough, about a half a cup of flour, and I put down. And it goes to the floor. I make a mess. Gotta wash the apron. I've done covered it this week massively, but I bake a lot. So, if there's something you do want to see baked, let me know. You never know. I've got cupcakes to make this week. Or this weekend. Okay. I know you're not able to see what I'm doing. I am just scraping the inside of the bowl with this, and I tend to take, if I can get the dough off the thing, and keep patting it in my flour, trying to keep it from sticking really bad. Okay. This dough gets heavy. I'm trying to get it out of this bowl. It is heavy, heavy. I'm trying to keep this, especially I'm trying to keep this so you can see it. Normally I would do it from the side and then you wouldn't see anything. So I'm trying to, I'm right-handed, so I'm trying to do this so that you can see it to the best. I scrape it out, as you can see, what you see up in there, but for the most part, there we go. The bowl is empty. Now comes the fun part. Covering yourself and the bread and flour. I'll try to get good and covered so I can pull this off here. Okay, so like I said, normally I would do 2 loaves of bread. This isn't really my favorite one to make for bread. I typically prefer to actually make the one where it sits in the oven, rises, all that good stuff. It takes me a good hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, depends on how much bread I'm making. But it's been a long week, and it's going to be a long weekend. And the other bread that sits and rises, it lasts longer. And we don't use a lot of bread. I use it for my husband for work, and with the kids home right now, I'm using a little bit more. But typically when they're in school, I don't use a whole lot. So, and this stuff can go bad pretty quick if you're not careful. So making 2 loaves is kind of a waste for me. Just put your bowl on the table, babe. It's kind of a waste. So we are going to do, yes baby, I got a video going. Don't touch, please, it'll fall. Please don't touch, it will fall. Sorry, my 3-year-old is playing, wanting to play with the camera. What? Okay. And as I'm talking with them, I'm just kneading in. What, baby? Okay. We're not having a sucker now. My hands are covered in flour, see? You're just going to have to go and watch Garfield and wait. It's almost 2 o'clock our time, and so they're wanting snacks. I'm trying to keep them out of the way while I do this so that you don't have a bunch of yelling on the video. You just kind of knead it It doesn't take much, honestly, if you use the KitchenAid. Now, if you did all of this by hand and in a bowl, you would have to do a lot of kneading. I've actually done more talking with you than I normally do. If that tells you anything. I let the KitchenAid do it. So, we have one really big dough ball. Now, if you wanted to say, just make a big round loaf of bread, just like this, you could probably stop at this step. I would dust off some of the extra flour because I do have it really, really coated. You could probably stop at this step and you could bake it. This bread will rise in the oven as it goes. Usually it sits almost halfway in the pan. I end up with it just above the pan, which you'll get to see it as we go. So I make it into a round, almost looks like a loaf. And I take my red scraper thing, get off the wet dough from where I was scraping it off the counter, because no matter how much I floured, I always mistake it somewhere. I wipe off some of the extra, I throw it on my baking pan. So, cut it in half. So, you're going to take it, separate it. I kind of flour one side because it's going to sit there for a minute. Turn this one up. Just flour it just a little bit because you don't want it to massively stick to your hands. And then I tend to kind of knead it. And I kind of flatten it out and try to get any crevices that have air bubbles sometimes. And then you can roll it and put it in that way. You can take this, I'll show you with this one. This one sometimes I just do like this, and I just kind of roll it around, tuck all my ends under like that, and I chunk it in there. But this looks really, really pretty like this today. Doesn't normally happen like this from this roll. So I'm just going to pinch these seams shut over here on this end so I don't have this funky looking seam when I pull this bread out of the oven. Pick this up, and I'm going to kind of shake it like that. I like to get some of the flour off because see all that. Now, you can tell like that it's a little too long for my pan, so I'm just going to kind of flip the ends under a little bit and smush him back in shape. And then I just go drop. And by doing it that way, he's actually almost as big as my pan. So I should have a nice little loaf up there. This depending on what you want to make. Okay. At this point, you could say if you wanted one loaf of bread, you could take this half and make you one pizza. You could take this and please don't touch. Please don't touch. Yes, they see your hands, babe, and your head. They can see you. That would be my 3-year-old. You can make buns out of it. You can make rolls out of it. Could have one pizza. Yeah, there's probably pretty endless what you could do with this. So I'm just going to make small little rolls. That'll be good. I tend to kind of cut off a piece and I kind of roll it up like that, and then I pinch my ends together and I kind of roll them under. Just make a little ball. Or you could just take it and roll it up. However you want to do it. Play with it. It's almost like an adult Play-Doh. That's what it feels like. If it starts to get sticky, you just grab a little bit more flour and put it on there. Sometimes I pinch the bottoms and then I flatten them out, and then I've got a little dough ball. So we've got one loaf of bread going. I'm going to cut all of this up. Okay, so I end up cutting it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pieces. However, this piece will make a really, really big one. I'll show you. Like, see, if I wanted to make a big one like that, that's what it would be like. I don't. I'm trying to keep them kind of small. So I'm going to cut all these big ones in the middle, especially, in half. If not, you know what? These would be really good for the kids to snack on. Perfect size by the time they blow up a little bit. Cut them open and put in jelly. Yes, it works well. I think I'm just going to pinch the bottoms and then round them out. Goes a little faster. So we've got 3 so far. So far, we've already got 14 biscuits on this pan. I've only got room for 1 more biscuit on this pan. And then I'm going to have leftover dough. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to smash the rest of this back together. I'm going to step out of screen here in just a minute. I'm going to grab one of my mini loaf pans. They're Christmassy. And we will look at making a mini loaf of bread. So that's a good part of the stuff. It's just it goes right back. Okay. Leave that there. Just like that. Let it sit there for a minute. Be right back. Okay. So this is my cute little mini Let It Snow. Both sides. Snowman thing. Okay. Right it. Okay. Mini loaf pan. So you can see him. Can you see him now? Yep, you can see him now. Let me wipe my hands off a little bit. Okay. Mini. Ooh, massively. What I am going to do real quick is, as you can see, the spread is already rising. I'm going to step out of frame, put them in the oven. So the bread, show you, it's still baking away. It's not quite ready on the bottom, but these are the rolls. They are nice and pretty and brown on top, nice and pretty and brown on the bottom. By the time I get these done, I'm hoping the bread will be done. There we go. So now these are literally just came out of the oven, so if you feel the need to use tongs, you can. Probably better because it's a little bit safer. I don't worry about it with my fingers. I can do several before they start to hurt. I've done it quite a bit, but they are quite hot. So I wouldn't recommend letting kids get these straight off the pan. So I'm going to transfer these to the wire rack, and I'm going to kind of make them a little close together, just because I do have 2 loaves of bread in the oven that are also going to have to go on this, unless I go climb and grab my other rack, which I might. Well, I can't because the bread's too high. I sit it beside it. So I may have to grab the other. I'm trying to get these so you guys can see them. There we go. See? I'm trying to make it so you guys can see. I might have to. These are all of our rolls. They smell so yummy. Wish you could smell them. Unfortunately, that's not really possible. Okay. You just get your butter. Now you can leave them like this. You do not have to butter them if you don't want to. I have done both. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and butter these, and then we're going to break one of the smaller ones open so you can see the inside of it. But like you saw the bottom's nice brown, tops are nice and brown. See, nice and pretty shiny buttered. You can do as much or as little as you like. Time is almost up on the bread. I'm not giving the full time. Some people test them to see if they're done. I'm going to have to take a break and go pull them because I have a thing where my nose knows when stuff is done baking. But I will take you with me. So let me get some pretty. Might get a little fuzzy for a minute. Hold this bread. What? I've got the answer for that. Sorry as I'm shaking you around. Of glove. Of glove. Slide that one over. This one. Let's see how nice and brown he is on the side, maybe. The camera's done automatically, so I don't know how well you're seeing him. But you see, he's really flowery. Oh, he's a cute dolphin one. Yes, dolphins. Zebra, dolphins, 2 favorite things. Okay, we are going to snag one of these little ones, and we're going to cut it open. I know you can't see me cutting it open, I'm really sorry. That's hard to do. Okay, I better open my fingers. So, that is the inside of our biscuit. Nice and soft. Okay. We have the biscuit. Now, since I've already got it open, I might as well put some jelly on it. And I guess I'll eat this one. So I get butter all over the counter. This, you can't see it. Just made this. It's hard to see. It's watermelon. I made this one the other day. I will open it and show you this one because this one I can take and shake and it doesn't move. Ugh! This one went straight into the fridge because I processed them and canned them, and this one didn't can real well. It didn't want to totally seal it. I wasn't going to reprocess this for one. This is homemade watermelon jelly. You can see the little flecks from the watermelon. A little bitty spoon. Ooh, it's really, really thick jelly. Makes my kids very happy. They like it like that. See, like that. And then you take and put it back on. And you can put as much as little. And you have a little baby biscuit. Cool. Here's the one in the Let It Snow mini loaf, nice and brown on top. Put that out of the way. Okay, how I can see it. It's nice and brown on the side and on the bottom. Ooh, that one's a little hotter than the biscuits were. Okay, take this one, cut off a little butter. So, mini loaf smeared in butter. It's bigger. You can already see that it is brown here. We grab the towel because it's going to be really hot. It's not completely brown on the bottom, but most of it is. It should still be good. Now, for these, because this literally, you know, you just saw it come out of the oven. I didn't wait on these. We're going to take this. I tend to put it on the rack, tilt it sideways, kind of like that, and pull it out. That way it can come out on its own. And you can kind of, see I can kind of push on it and it springs back. It doesn't have this, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's got like a hollow sound to it. That's a good thing. See, hollow sound, good thing. So, still a lot of flour on the top. Some people like that, that's fine if you do. I'm not one of them. I did not bring a clean rag over here, but that's okay. We got a paper towel. I want the butter to stay on the bread, so I'm going to wipe off a bunch of this extra flour. I want the butter on the bread, not the extra flour. Except on the side. Okay. And see, this side kind of gives you this funky, cracked stuff, but that's kind of cool. It's okay. And then the side's nice and flat. See, I wiped off the extra flour. Now we have a nice brown top. Still, that's just my fingernails hitting it. That's a nice little hollow sound. Love it. Okay. And then I butter the top of this one. Like I said, the instructions on the website say that you can take and you can smear it with egg wash or take and do milk, I think it is, or something like that. I'm not sure. I typically don't do it. I typically let it come out of the oven. And then I take and smear it with butter. You can freehand cut this with a knife. I have done it for a long time that way. I happened to go to Goodwill. This was actually still in the box. I'm not one for cardboard, so I chunked it. And you can actually buy these nifty things. You can make them yourself if you're inclined to word whipping. My husband is, but doesn't have the time for his job right now. But you can buy these. Looks like this. Open on one end, has these on the other. You would take your loaf. I'm not going to do it right now because it's super, super hot. Put it in there, and your knife would actually guide. Your knife would go in between each one of these slots, and that would give you bread. Okay, this, I'm just going to get it all on the screen. This whole thing, if you were to cut from here to here, is there's 18 little numbers on these little pegs. The bread stops right here. So it goes from 2 to 18. So it's almost an entire loaf that fits in this. This is a West Bend bread cutter, slicer thing. Only thing, unless you have, if it has holes in it, I wouldn't recommend it on French toast. But if it doesn't, you make the thicker slices, this does do some good French toast. But it's got to have good solid insides.